Well, hello and welcome to Global One Media's Stocks to Watch series, where we bring you the information you need to build a robust investment portfolio. I am Munir Barazi, your business analyst and host, and today I am joined by Sergiy Tsivkach, the CEO of UkraineInvest, which is the Ukrainian government's investment promotion office that was created in 2016 to attract foreign direct investment and assist existing investors to expand their business in Ukraine. Hello, Sergey. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Happy to talk to you today.
Wonderful. So let's dive right into it. How is UkraineInvest currently working to attract foreign investors and promote investment opportunities in Ukraine?
Well, we are in a very active mode, regardless of the full-scale military illegal invasion done by Russia against Ukraine. We are still working on development of the economy because we cannot allow our economy to go down, well, deeper than it's happened already in 2022. So we need to make sure that reconstruction is happening right now. We are in the process of doing rapid reconstruction right now in Ukraine. And then we will be going into a mode of a post-war, full-scale reconstruction, rebuilding, and economic transformation, as we call it, because we cannot go back to Ukraine of 2021. We need to transform our country economically. We need to bring new technologies. We need to make sure that the country will arise as a new, economically developed European state. So UkraineInvest is at the peak of these activities. On behalf of the government of Ukraine, we talk to investors in Ukraine and throughout the world about opportunities that are related to specifically rapid reconstruction now. We also outline plans for businesses that will come to Ukraine that will be connected to a full-scale reconstruction. And, you know, this data helps because then businesses can understand what kind of profits they can make. We understand that there are emotions. Companies, they are happy to support Ukraine, but first of all, we want companies to understand that Ukraine is a profitable business case and you can come and do business in Ukraine, make profits, and increase your investments.
Those are commendable efforts, and the reconstruction process you're working on is very important, and it will help Ukraine defend itself. What factors should encourage investors now to still invest in Ukraine despite the ongoing security situation and the fact that this might turn out to be a long war?
Let's look at some figures. In 2021, the level of FDIs into Ukraine was more than 7.3 billion US dollars. During 2022, there was a sharp decline, economic decline in Ukraine. So our GDP has shrunk by 29.1%. It's a huge number. At the same time, level of foreign direct investment into Ukraine dropped to minus 328 annual FDIs into Ukraine in 2022. So the gap of annual FDIs into Ukraine between 2021 and 2022 was more than 7.6 billion US dollars. Looking at 2023, according to National Bank of Ukraine's statistics, the positive inflow of FDIs into Ukraine after first quarter of 2023 is 1.1 billion US dollars. So companies, they began to feel more secure in some areas of Ukraine. Also, they pick up their businesses and they increase operations in Ukraine because there is a need. There is a need for a lot of materials. There is a need for construction materials. There is a need for new logistical chains. There is a need for new facilities in Ukraine. So businesses react to that. A lot of that comes from reinvestment from existing companies that are already doing business in Ukraine, but we also have new capital investments in Ukraine. So companies like Carlsberg, Kingspan, Unilever, Nestle, Sergiy, you know, those international brands, they already announce and they do investments in Ukraine along with Ukrainian investors. They are also active and they are rebuilding their businesses and also expanding their businesses.
That's very good. And it sounds like the economic wheel is still moving very actively despite the ongoing situation. And what specific initiatives or programs does Ukraine Invest have in place to level the playing field for foreign companies compared to domestic ones?
This is not the level of economic development that we want to see. Our GDP has grown compared to 2022, but this is nowhere near yet the level of GDP that we want to see in order to transform Ukraine. So let's be clear about that. We understand the situation, and the situation is critical. But still, we have positive steps, and this is what we are trying to convey, and businesses see that. So level playing field, very important topic. Let's look at Constitution of Ukraine. Article 42 provides for effective and clear and economic competition in the country, for protection of economic competition in the country. So we have a specialized body called Anti-Monopoly Committee of Ukraine. It's a typical competition agency that is used throughout the world in many countries. When you talk about United States, for example, that would be an analog to US Federal Trade Commission. So this agency is responsible for control of any anti-competitive behavior in Ukraine, and they are responsible for level playing field in our country, for big businesses, for small businesses, for Ukrainian businesses, for international businesses, for any economic enterprises that are operating in Ukraine. So that's number one. Secondly, we as UkraineInvest provide support to foreign and internet and local investors in order to ensure that level playing field. And sometimes we pay more attention to international investors because they are new to the country. So they need to understand specifics of legislation, they need to understand specific of financial system, they need to have some analytical updates, they need to get in touch simply with local authorities, with central authorities, with businesses. So this is why we exist. And we are also typical IPA, investment promotion agency, that is acting according to OECD standards. So we exist here in order to make sure that business, wherever they come from Ukraine or from other countries, they feel the same and they have same access to incentives, to legal system, to judicial system, and to enforcement system if they feel that their rights were affected in some way.
That is very encouraging. Let's talk about having timely information. How does UkraineInvest stay updated on the market trends and preferences of the new age audience to effectively communicate with potential investors and perhaps inform those investors?
We have different levels of sourcing information. Well, first of all, international databases. I would not probably name them here, not to make a promotion, because there are several of them. So we do have analytics about international businesses, what they do today, what kind of expansions plans they have, where they plan new investments, and we use this information in order to get in touch with them. We also use information from analytical think tanks, specifically from those that follow situation in Ukraine and around Ukraine, and they provide reports about movements of businesses and activities of businesses related to our region, and activities of businesses from throughout the world that may be interested in our businesses. That's one side of things. The other side of things is our proactive work with investors. We organize series of webinars and events in order to get to the decision makers from international companies and explain to them why you can do business in Ukraine, what kind of state incentives are available for investors right now. And there are a big number of those. Investors that invest at least 12 million euros in Ukraine now in specific sectors of economy, they could get up to 30% of state support of the capex of investments. Companies can be excluded from paying corporate income tax for 5 or 10 years. Companies can be excluded from paying custom duties on new equipment that they bring to Ukraine. Specific industries can be excluded from paying corporate income tax for many years, like for electric vehicles manufacturing sector, companies will not be paying taxes till 2036, according to Ukrainian legislation. And this is very important because we need to create new working places, new jobs. They would create new additional taxes from parallel industries, and also will create cluster economies, because if we had a big investor that is coming to Ukraine and using state incentives, at the same time we are creating a number of SMEs that will be acting around this big investor in order to produce materials for that company. So a big number of opportunities is available. That's why we exist, in order to explain to our foreign partners how to get to know them, how to use them. All our services are free of charge. We are part of the government of Ukraine. So I encourage everyone who is interested in doing business in Ukraine or with Ukraine to get in touch and to get advice from us.
These are very encouraging opportunities and incentives indeed. And what unique tools or strategies does UkraineInvest employ to reach target investors and influence them to take action?
From our point of view, the main tool that we have to use when we talk to investors, apart from incentives, apart from the rule of law, apart from the understanding the landscape of, as I said, legal, financial, analytical side of things of doing business in Ukraine, we need to provide investors with specific opportunities. That's why we have our analytical platform called Fit for Ukraine. And this was specifically created to give investors information about a number of specific products that will need to be produced in Ukraine in order to reconstruct, rebuild our country and transform our country. So that was very useful. We already conducted more than 7 webinars and presented analytical materials. And more than 10 companies approached us after these events with real plans to invest. Many businesses hear from the news about the damage that Ukraine has suffered, that was caused to Ukraine. But we connect the dots. So we explain the damage in specific number of goods and products that are needed in order to rebuild our country. And that helps investors make decision about investing in Ukraine, because they will understand how much they need to invest in Ukraine and what would be the payback period for their investments.
This sounds like a very valuable support you provide to investors. Sergiy Tsivkach, the CEO of UkraineInvest, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing this information. I'm sure your message has been heard loud and clear. Best of wishes of success to you and Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.